fzero. You tell me something, when was the last time that an F-Zero title appeared on a Nintendo console? About 20 years ago. Nintendo is dropping yet another title on the Nintendo Switch Online service, F-Zero X. A couple little things that I do have problems with, missed opportunities and missed potential, and it's a weird port, man. That's why we're going to be taking a look at the original Nintendo 64 disk drive. I'm going to be showing you lossless footage of the Nintendo 64 disk drive F-Zero expansion kit, comparing it to the F-Zero X on the Nintendo Switch. Alright, let's start with the graphics of F-Zero. And if you guys know how the Nintendo Switch Online works, and I did put a video right up here talking about the smoothing filter that's been used in all the other NSO games, Nintendo has also applied that over here. They've applied a nice little smoothing filter that goes over the entire game, which also makes the 3D models and machines look pretty nice. Because of that, 2D pixels as well as sprites just don't really come up to snuff. You can see right here in a side-by-side comparison on the 64 that some of the sprite work as well as the pixels just really don't look that good or that sharp. I always do feel this is a weakness of a smoothing filter, but you take what you can get. This is more of a personal preference, but I would have, of course, liked to see a pixel-perfect representation or maybe different other filters to kind of give that raw pixel look. Fog looks great. The issue has been fixed, like I mentioned in Majora's Mask video, but it's really nice to see that Nintendo has continued that over here. When you're actually going through Mute City, for example, you can see in the horizon that it looks almost verbatim like the original. And I haven't really had a problem specifically with how the horizon looks. It does feel as though everything is perfectly encapsulated how it should be. And that's where the problems start to begin, more specifically with the gameplay. F-Zero was one of the first titles to be released fully in 60 FPS. And unfortunately, it doesn't really reach like that. To be fair, the original 64 also had a little bit of trouble keeping up, but it was much more steady in comparison to the NSO. In Port Town, a great example right here where you can see yourself bumping with a couple of cars. It was very odd to notice that there's a lot more frame rate dips when you're crashing your cars here in comparison to the original, and I don't really know if that's actually in the original. If you know, please let me know, but it feels like this version is introducing new frame rate dips, new lag, and everything else that the original one hasn't. I do feel there are a couple of ways to remedy this, and one of the best ways is actually overclocking. A great example right here is my Nintendo Switch that's modded using RetroArch. You could actually go into the menu, overclock the system to have a more 60 FPS that's very steady and locked. This is something I would have preferred, and the reason that I mentioned about reaction-based games, because F-Zero is a game where every input counts, every boost counts, and if you don't do it properly, you will lose the race. That's just how the game is, and to kind of have anything else other than perfect is a difficult thing to play. You don't really notice lag as much as, let's say, Ocarina or Majora, but you absolutely do notice here in F-Zero where timing's everything. If it's possible to overclock your Switch to get a 60 FPS, Nintendo can do something like this. There's no way around that. Lag is a significant problem that I've had with the whole NSO service, but you really feel it here in F-Zero. When you're starting up your machine with the countdown from 3 to 1, right when I press 1, I'm always able to boost on the Nintendo 64 version, no problem. And mind you, I have a Bluetooth 8-bit DO controller that is connected to my Nintendo 64. However, on the NSO, as soon as I do that, I never am able to get that countdown. I always lag behind, I always do that. I'm not saying that this is the perfect indicator, but to my eyes, I've been seeing there's a lot more lag right here than I've seen in the original, and that's a huge problem I have. The controller layout is just, it really bothers me so much. I've mentioned this in Banjo-Kazooie, Majora's Mask, and the same problem is here. Because your thumb automatically rests on the A button when you're pressing B to boost, it just feels so much more natural to holding the curvature of the controller. However, with the Nintendo Switch layout, with A and B switched, now that you're holding it in a semi-diagonal position, it starts to really cramp your hand because you're holding A and then using the bottom portion of your thumb to press B. I know the comment section is going to say that you can replace and remap all of the buttons, but you have to do so in the menu, and you have to do so every time, and you have to navigate the menu using that map layout. Yes, it is possible, I know that, but just because it's possible doesn't mean it's a fluid experience. You gotta realize that. The most advertised feature on F-Zero X for the NSO is multiplayer. You get to play online with some of your great friends, but the problem is, does it really work that well? Actually, it's a yes and no. It really depends on what you're doing, your internet settings, and how that's going to be working. NSO runs on a peer-to-peer network, meaning that whoever's hosting the game and whoever has the worst internet is going to be lagging the whole experience. I was actually able to play with my friend Cody online, and to really get that, I was using a 2.4 gigahertz router that I had, and we started to notice huge frame rate dips on top of the lag that you see initially. Right then and there, I was about to dismiss the whole service, but he mentioned I should switch to a 5 gigahertz network. And once I did that, everything was completely smooth. It was much more playable than it was. Like I said, there is internet lag on top of the initial lag that is present in the emulation, but I think for people who just want to have an online experience, it's passable. So I think that's decent enough. In a perfect world, I would not even want it to be like this. And I think for people who want to play F-Zero, it's a pretty cool way to do it, especially online. I have a huge pet peeve when it comes to missed opportunities, and this is a complete one as well. There is no addition of the expansion kit here for the Nintendo Switch Online. Ironic too, considering this is the expansion pack and it doesn't have the expansion kit. Great wording, Nintendo. The expansion kit was released on the Nintendo 64 disk drive only in Japan, which is a floppy drive based disc add-on for the Nintendo 64. It's exclusively released there. The expansion kit boasts an incredible amount of features, including machine creation, complete track editor that you can edit to whatever you desire, 3 brand new cups, 2 of them that are DD exclusive, and 1 of them of your own design that uses your own creation in the track editor. And most importantly, you can play Rainbow Road using the Mario Kart remix. So my point is, why does this even matter? Why do you need to have this? It's a missed opportunity. Nintendo could have easily added this in onto the original ROM, no problem, and allowed you to have all of these features that honestly enhance the original experience so much more further than the original. And that's a huge deal, to be able to create your own tracks and to be able to make your own car. Some of these features are not even present in future F-Zero titles, and it's just mind-boggling that this is still exclusive to the Nintendo 64 disk drive, a dead add-on that I have a huge hard-on for. Nintendo can make this happen, and here's why. My modded Switch actually has a modded version of the expansion kit, lovingly created by Twitter user and video game preservationalist Luigi Blood. Him in the modding community was able to combine both the original experience of F-Zero X as well as the expansion kit into one ROM that you can play on any emulator that you want. Right here on my Switch using RetroArch. I'm actually playing the 64DD version and it runs beautifully. He did a fantastic job. And this is proof enough to show that this isn't hard for Nintendo to implement. They can do this, but they're not doing it. And honestly, I just have a huge problem with missed opportunities. I know Nintendo can make this the best service that it can be. They can make F-Zero the best experience that it can, and yet they're not doing it. I really hate it when companies half-ass things, and honestly, this whole NSO experience has been a conundrum of pretty solid emulation to pretty crappy design choices that Nintendo could have easily fixed, and this is one of those. F-Zero, unfortunately, is just something I really wish Nintendo could go back, fix, and lovingly recreate, and especially re-release, but it's as minimally bare bones as it gets, and I don't know if this is going to convince a lot of people, and if it doesn't convince you, I think you're one of the smart ones. And this is coming from someone who adores the Nintendo 64 disc drive. I actually bought this thing with the expansion kit, and I think this thing genuinely sucks. But what do you guys think? Do you think this is a missed opportunity on Nintendo and they should have brought the 64 DD content? Or maybe this will suffice with you and you'll be happy with playing it online? Let me know down in the comments below, and hopefully we can have a nice discussion. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. We're almost up to 10K followers. Thank you guys for just following, for commenting, for even just watching and taking the time to just really enjoy the channel. This channel is as much of a labor of love as possible, so I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys very soon.